The first weekend of official visits was successful for Ragin Cajuns football as they add some commitments to the 2027 class. Let's break it all down here on Ragin Rundown. What's good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into another episode of Ragin Rundown, the show where you will know all things UL sports. I'm your guy, Jamarcus Fitzpatrick, but you know you can always call me Fitz. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about the commitments that Ragin Cajun football has received to their 2027 class, as well as a pair of bullpen arms that Ragin Cajuns baseball has added to their team for next season. So, as we've talked about in previous episodes, which you can go and check that out. This past weekend, or I guess the past couple of days, has been the first official weekend of official visits for Ragin' Cajuns football. They have a couple of weekends scheduled. I have some names listed down of what those guys will be for the next couple of weeks. But as it stood, you had 7 players to come in and have official visits this past weekend. You had Summer Creek DB Caleb White, Faraday wide receiver Robert Taylor, University Lab D lineman Mason Smith, St. Aug Edge Jacques Robichaux, Shadow Creek tight end Bryce Coleman, STM safety Landon Ortiz, and then I was recently told while I was posting about it that PJ Mackion Jr. was also on an official visit there as well this past weekend. But you were extremely successful because you got 3 players to commit while they were on their official visits. One actually just announcing right after I started recording this episode. So I initially had it as football gets a pair of commitments, and I just had to change it to football gets commitments after official visits. I'm probably going to be checking my phone as I'm recording this episode to make sure nobody else comes back and circles back and announces their commitment as well. So we'll start with the initial guy that announced his commitment, which was defensive lineman Mason Smith, the University High defensive lineman. For him, he was initially offered back on June 15th of last year. So this is a year in the making process of getting him to commit to your program. If I'm assuming what happened is that he went to a prospect camp. They are holding prospect camps right now for the 28 class. He probably went to a prospect camp. They liked what they saw. They gave him an offer. He was the 3rd school that he received an offer from. And in the process now, you're beating out the likes of Southern Miss, Liberty, Tulane, South Alabama, and Arkansas State. So all very linear schools in terms of the level that you're competing against. You beat them out to be able to get this commitment. Obviously, he was a player that was on an official visit this weekend. He is listed as a 3-star. He's the 38th best player in the state according to 24/7 Sports, and is the 2nd ranked defensive lineman in the state of Louisiana. So you're getting a really talented player standing at 6'3", 280 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go back to his Twitter account just so I can confirm that. 6'3", 280 pounds, and runs a 5 flat in the 40. And he also plays baseball as a first baseman. So he's got some athleticism to him. If I had to guess, he's probably going to be more of an interior defensive lineman, something like what we see with Fitzgerald West and Maxie Bodwin, players of that caliber. So adding him to the mix is really big for you because we know that the defensive line plays in a 4-down set, but they don't just play with 4 guys. They like to rotate as many guys as possible. So adding someone young to the group is someone we could potentially see him slowly working his way in through special teams, maybe getting a rep or 2 here and there, and eventually becoming a guy that helps you to be able to win ball games on Saturdays. So kudos to him for announcing his commitment. I reached out to him to see what went into his decision. I have not heard back from him just yet, but once I do hear something, I'll either talk about it on my day job at KTC or I'll talk about it here on the pod. The next player that announced his commitment was Landon Ortiz, who is a local product. So he is staying at home and coming up in a situation for you where you identified him as somebody that you wanted very quickly, and he committed very quickly. He received his offer on May the 4th. He had other offers from the likes of Nichols, Incarnate Word, and Northwestern State, so FCS schools. So this is his biggest offer that he had up until this point. You got him on an official visit, and he commits. Um, Getting the footprint of a local product, in my opinion, is always going to be really big, because obviously the majority of this team's roster is comprised of guys in the state of Louisiana, but there's nothing better than being able to get a local guy. And like we've talked about before on this podcast, it's not that they don't recruit local guys, but when you think about some of the guys that are in this same class, you think of Braylon Calais, you think of Karan Eugene, you think of so many other guys that are in this 2027 class. They're receiving powerful offers. So once you kind of get outbidded in a sense, it's not that you're giving up. It's just that you're probably not going to get them. You still cultivate that relationship in case he goes somewhere and it doesn't work out there and he wants to transfer back home, like what we saw with Walker Howard, what we saw with Fitzgerald West. We've seen it time and time again that guys will go to bigger schools. It doesn't work out there for them, and they come back because they have great relationships with your coaching staff. So you still want to recruit the kid. It's just ultimately sometimes you're not in the ballpark to be able to land the commitment. But you land a commitment with him this past season. He played in 12 games. He was first team all district and also all state for the LFCA, which I think is the Louisiana Football Coaches Association, if I'm remembering right off the top of my head. 6'2", 190 pounds as a safety. He had 2 interceptions, 10 pass breakups, 122 tackles, 48 of them being solo. So he really has a nose for the football. And if I had to guess, he would probably be kind of that secondary safety that's near the box in the Cajuns defensive scheme when they go in the 4-2-5 set, because they're based out of a 4-3. But when they take one linebacker out and they put an extra safety in, based on those type of tackling numbers, that's probably going to be the type of safety that he would be in this particular scheme. So you get a guy that is a local product to commit to your school after extending an offer to him very early and being able to make that happen. That's really huge. So I asked him what went into his decision. And he said the overall staff and how everybody treated you good from the second that you were in the building. So I'm probably going to try to talk to him in person to get a little bit more insight about what went into his decision and how the visit as a whole went. So that's another commitment. Kudos to him for making his decision to become a Ragin Cajun that you add to the class as well. And the last commitment that football received as of today, and he announced it probably within the last hour, is Summer Creek DB Caleb White. We talked about him in a previous episode that he is a cornerback. And as I'm looking up some information about him as well, his father is Reggie White, a running back that played in the NFL, not the great defensive lineman that we all know and love as well. But his dad also did play in the NFL. He originally went to Oklahoma State and was undrafted in 2001, spent a couple of years in the league. So he has a football pedigree and background and knows what it takes to get to that type of level because he has that example right there in his household. He originally received his offer from the Cajuns back in March. That was his 12th offer. So he is a hot commodity. Getting him to commit to you, you beat out the likes of App State and Texas State, North Texas, Duke, Texas El Paso, which actually has an official visit set with them for next weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if he will still go on that visit, if he will cancel it. I have not heard from him just yet about what that decision will entail. But winning these type of recruiting battles is really important. With college football 26 or 25, 26, and now 27 coming out, we saw a lot of that usage happening in recruiting battles where you're going head to head with different schools. And when they are on the same level as you, or they're comparable with the same type of school as you are, it's really big when you're able to win these recruiting battles, bring guys into your program when they're quality players. He is 5'10", 171 pounds. This past season as a corner, he only had 17 targets his way. He allowed just 2 catches the entire season, no touchdowns, 5 interceptions, with one of them being a pick 6. He had 10 pass breakups, 2 tackles for loss, and 21 tackles. So he's not a guy that's going to come up and make a whole lot of tackles for you. He's going to come down and shut down one side of the field for you, which is really, really big in your defense, right? You have a Brent Gordon Jr., who's a man-to-man type of corner on one side. You have an Avery Demery. You have a Jeremiah Moses. So you have a lot of cornerbacks that can play in press man situations. It appears that that's going to be the type of corner that this young man can be for you as well. I mean, kind of has that Eric Guerra type build in the sense of what he is, and who knows, maybe he could materialize and become something like that too, especially when it comes to the return game. So you add 3 commits from this class after going through your first weekend of official visits. So now you are up to 9 players in this class, and they are as follows: Shadow Creek tight end Bryce Coleman, who was also on an official visit this past weekend. Avoyo's defensive lineman Kobe Smith, he'll be in town next weekend, this coming weekend, that is. Faraday wide receiver Rob Taylor, he was on a visit this weekend. Westbrook quarterback Tam Anderson, he will be on a visit next weekend. Angleton offensive lineman Noah Ernst next weekend. Blackman wide receiver John Walker, University Lab defensive lineman Mason Smith, Landon Ortiz, and Caleb White are all a part of your class. So now things are coming even more closer to form. You're one commitment away from having double-digit commits here in the 2027 class, and the work is just continuing to go along. Right, you get guys in, you get commitments very early, and now the thing is being able to hold the rope, as we always say, because as these guys continue to play through their senior seasons, somebody can see them and can offer them, and they can blow up and become a 4-star or even a 5-star. We've seen things like this happen overnight. You think about a guy like a Marquez Davis, who's a Northwest product here in Opelousas. UL originally offered him. He gets an offer from Lane Kiffin, goes on an official visit, and now he's projected to commit to the Tigers. So that's not to say that this could happen, that this will happen, but it's a possibility that it always could happen. So the Cajuns are going to have to hold the rope with these 9 commits, continue to cultivate these relationships, let these young men know, hey, we want you to be a part of our program, and if you come here, you will be a part of something, building something special towards the future. So you're up to 9 commits here in your 2027 class. You'll have, I believe, 2 more weekends coming up with the official visits that you have going on. But football was not the only program that received some commitments, as we also saw baseball get a pair of commitments, and they are coming from a familiar place in the Sun Belt, and they have a lot of familiarity with your coaching staff as well. We'll discuss all of those things, what they will bring to the table, and who they are when we come back here on Ragin Rundown. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Ragin Rundown. We're going to get back into the action in just a second. But before we do, please do me a favor. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video, share it, and leave a comment down below. But most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're listening, follow the podcast feed, rate the show, and leave us a review, because that'll help us get in front of more Ragin Cajun fans just like yourself. So as I mentioned before the break, Ragin Cajuns baseball also received a pair of commitments from guys out of the transfer portal. We've talked about some of the junior college guys, the high school signees that they've already added as commits. Now they're working through the portal, and Coach Matt Diggs talked about it after their loss to Mississippi State, how he felt that if he could add some strong arms to the bullpen that he already has, that this team could be in line for having a goal of hosting a regional in 2027. So they're one step closer to that as they get commitments from 2 pitchers that are transferring from Marshall, which is the place that pitching coach Taylor Sandiford came from. So they are very familiar with your pitching coach, which is a huge positive to what you're having building in your program. The first pitcher is Blaine Albright. He is a lefty. He has 2 more years of eligibility. He stands at 6'3". He's 225 pounds. He originally signed with Indiana and redshirted that first year in Bloomington, and then transferred to Marshall and played there for 2 seasons. In his first season with the Herd, he was 1-0. He had a 4.24 ERA in 17 appearances, gave up 14 hits, 5 walks, struck out 20 in 17 innings, and his opponents only hit a 212 batting average against him. But then Coach Sandiford, obviously last season, leaves, and things didn't go as well for Albright. He was 1 for 3. He had a 7.92 ERA over 14 outings, including 4 starts and 25 innings. He allowed 30 hits, 25 walks, and struck out 23. He talked about in an article with Kevin Foote that he was struggling with a pulled hamstring in his first outing of the season, and things kind of went downhill from there with him. But he talked about how much he appreciated Coach Sandiford just as the coach that he truly is. And I reached out to him and asked him what went into his decision And he said, Coach Sandiford, plain and simple, played under him in Marshall, and he's the best coach I've ever had. So you have a guy on your staff that has cultivated a relationship well enough, and that's going to be a key component to a lot of your recruiting battles. Is that if you build great relationships, and it's bigger than the sport with a lot of these guys and these coaches, it makes them want to play for you. I've been around enough of these programs at UL that I hear that as a common theme, that these guys really care. It's not just a business here. They truly, genuinely care about you as a player and a person, rather than just you being, an X or O on the field, or whatever the competition state of where you're at. And I think that is truly important, because that is what is going to matter most when things are hard in games and things are not going their way in different games. They're going to play for you because they know you care about them. And so this is an example of that, getting a commitment from him. And then they also got a commitment from Charlie Krebs, who also was at Marshall. He is a senior, and this will be his last season coming in to 2027. He's 6'2", 215 pounds. And he was under Coach Sandiford for 2 seasons before, obviously, Sandy came to UL this past year. In 2025, he was 5-2 with a 2.92 ERA and 27 outings for the Thundering Herd. He gave up 36 hits in 52 and a third innings with 24 walks and 40 strikeouts. In this past season, Krebs was 2-3 with 3 saves and a 6.08 ERA in 24 appearances. In 40 innings, he surrendered 45 hits, 23 walks, and struck out 38. So, again, he talked about how much he cares about Coach Sandiford. And if I can go and pull that DM up of where I reached out to him, because I'm also reading from the article that Kevin Foote, put out, talking about the 2 commitments with the Advocate. I asked him what went into his decision as well. He said getting back with Coach Sandiford was a huge part of it, but during my recruiting process, I just started to fall in love with the Cajuns' winning culture, and especially what Coach Deggs preaches to the program. So another component about this that I haven't talked about, neither one of these guys took a visit. Neither one of them have come to Lafayette just quite yet. They'll be here later, probably in the back half of June, to take their official visits. They are committing off of the strength of Coach Sandiford and off the relationship they have cultivated with him and what they believe can happen based on what Coach Deggs has told them through conversations. And that is paramount, because you can wow people with glitz and glam, and you can show them great facilities and uniforms, and you can give them an NIL check and all of these things like that. But when guys are willing to commit to you off the strength of, hey, man, I care about you as a person and I want you to be great in life, you can't beat that. So you get 2 bullpen arms. You get 2 arms added to your bullpen. That is, one being a very experienced righty, I believe Charlie Krebs is, and then Blaine Albright having 2 years of eligibility, somebody that can help you as well with what you already have on your staff: the Ty Romans, the Sawyer Pruitts, the Parker Smiths, the Hayden Pearsons, the Cam Rileys, the Landon Victorians. Like, you're adding a plethora of guys to give you an opportunity to be really, really special in 2027. If I'm not mistaken, I think I have a sheet pulled up where, you guys know I like to do roster layouts and I can see it fully. And I think I did one. I know I have one for football because that's what's coming up on my sheets guide. Let me see. I did do one for baseball. So right now, out of your bullpen, based on what we've heard of guys returning and the commitments that you currently have, I think this is 16 pitchers: Ty Roman, Garrett Carter, Cam Riley, Parker Smith, Hayden Pearson, Sawyer Pruitt, Chase Morgan, potentially, J.R. Tillett, Landon Victorian, Bryce Wilson, Evan Vincent from Turlins Catholic, Trent Lape. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce his name correctly, but he's the Bipsy transfer coming in, Daggett and Kubat, Maddox Sullivan, Charlie Krebs, and Blaine Albright. I think that is 16 pitchers that you have in your bullpen. And what I've been told is they could be adding more out of the transfer portal. They're looking to add a catcher and maybe some infielder or outfielder as well, as the portal window will be set to close on June 30th. It's June the 7th as of now, so they have plenty of time to work through those things to see what guys they want to add to their program. So it was a very eventful week, a big week for the Ragin Cajuns football and baseball programs, as football gets 3 commitments and now gets their 2027 class up to 9 players. Baseball adds a pair of arms to the bullpen as well. So that's going to wrap up this episode here on Ragin Rundown. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much. Please do me a favor, like it, share it, and leave a comment down below. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're listening, follow the podcast feed, rate the show, and leave us a review, because that's going to help us get in front of more Ragin Cajun fans just like yourself. I'm your guy, Jamarcus Fitzpatrick. We'll see you guys next time.